How do you go from chaos to cool? How do you take all of your and turn it into a curated collection that reflects your personality? Well, in today's video, I'm going to talk to you about how to do eclectic interior design. We're going to talk about what exactly eclectic design is, the main characteristics of an eclectic space. I'm going to give you some easy tips for creating the perfect eclectic interior. Talk about some things to avoid so that you don't fall into the trap of just having an explosion of crap all throughout your home. This is how to do eclectic interior design. Hey y'all, I'm Lou. I'm an artist and designer, and I make content about arts, crafts, and design. So if you're into that kind of thing, be sure to subscribe for more. I want to start off by saying, for your interior space, at the end of the day, there are no rules. If you're comfortable and happy in your space, that's all that matters. This is really just a video for people who love that eclectic look and aren't really sure how to go about curating items in their home to create that look. So I think the first question is, what exactly is eclectic interior design? In my opinion, the easiest way to describe it is taking and blending different styles and periods of furniture, fabric, finishes, objects to create a cohesive and curated space. Eclectic style encompasses a variety of time periods and styles and is brought together using color, texture, and placement of objects. So what are the characteristics of an eclectic space? I think when you understand what the characteristics of an eclectic design are, it'll help you curate your space a little more easily. So for me, the main characteristics of eclectic design are using furniture, artwork, and decor from different time periods and different styles. Mixing and matching of patterns. Using a diverse range of materials, textures, and colors, and we'll get into these later. And then having some sense of who you are, your personality, your life story infused into your decor. So that sounds just like a huge pool of options and ideas, but I think one of the key principles of creating a really good eclectic space is curating and editing. All right, let's talk about some tips to help you curate your space. I think the best tip, and it's sort of a vague one, but the best tip to creating a cohesive eclectic space is finding balance. Balance is key. So while variety and diversity are important in eclectic design, you want to avoid overwhelming your space with too much visual clutter. Try to aim for balance by letting each item contribute to the overall design without competing for attention. One way to achieve this is by having one or a few focal points in your space, with everything else playing the role of supporting actor. For example, a large piece of artwork can serve as a focal point, while smaller pieces hung nearby can complement it instead of competing with it for attention. And I think this image is a really good example of that. Or if you have a really jazzy and eye-catching piece of furniture in the space, try to balance it out with something more subdued and quiet nearby. Busy wallpaper can also be balanced out with a solid color for the drapery and simple wooden furniture. This will give your eyes a chance to rest and allow for a smooth visual flow. If every item in your space is a statement piece, or you filled every inch to the brim with pattern, texture, and color, you'll easily overwhelm your senses and not be able to relax. So remember to give your eyes a moment to rest by balancing the statement pieces with subtle and more neutral elements. That's the key to balance. Color can be a wonderful unifying element to help bring everything together. Whether you're drawn to more vibrant colors or you prefer a more muted palette, balancing the two is essential for creating a cohesive and well-designed space. To create balance and harmony, begin with a base color, let's say for your walls and ceiling, and that will be the main color in your space. From there, you can select a few additional complementary colors to be used throughout the space in smaller doses that coordinate with the rest of your decor. This image is a good example of how a more neutral wall and ceiling color can help balance out a bold sofa color and patterned rug. I think a good tip for creating a nice visual flow with color is to use a single color in small doses at varying levels. Let's say you have a rug with dark blue accents. I would pull that color up to the eye level in a piece of artwork or drapery, and then again above eye level, like in a light fixture. I think this image is a really great example of pulling color up through varying levels to create a sense of cohesion. Next, I want to talk about pattern mixing. Pattern mixing can be so fun, but also very intimidating because there are so many different types of patterns: large scale, small scale, florals, geometrics, and everything in between. So I just think having some sort of framework to help you mix and match your patterns is really helpful. One easy way to make multiple types of patterns work well together in your space is to vary the scale of the pattern. This image is a great example of how 3 different patterns can feel cohesive and unified even though they don't share like a common characteristic. And then another way to unify varying patterns is to use the same color in each of the patterns. So in this image, we have a grouping of different patterns that feel super cohesive because they're all in that blue family. And then bonus points for bringing that blue up onto the wall with the artwork. I think another important tip to creating a cohesive eclectic design is layering. You want to think about different types of layers and layering. Layering adds depth and warmth to your space. You can incorporate layering through texture, pattern, color, and lighting. You can combine various surfaces and finishes to create depth and visual interest. So if you have like a shiny leather sofa, try pairing it with a soft, inviting pillow and a textured rug underfoot. This gives you that variation and creates that depth. Or try pairing like a glossy paint job with a textured natural material next to it. This image I love. I think it just hits all of those notes of feeling like it has character and depth. This not only creates visual layering, but it also creates a certain amount of tension that keeps a space feeling too flat or too one note. And then another way to add a sense of layering and depth is by having a variety of light sources in your space. Try incorporating a variety of light fixtures like floor lamps, table lamps, and sconces. These light fixtures can all act like pieces of sculpture, which add a richness and depth while also giving you the flexibility of changing the mood of the space from daytime to nighttime. You want to display your collections. Displaying items that you've collected over the years is part of telling your story. Our collections help tell the story of who we are and where we've come from. So it's important that you don't shy away from displaying your most treasured objects, even if you feel like they don't necessarily belong in that design space. To avoid having a cluttered and just chaotic mess of stuff, use color, finishes, and subject matter to help tie everything together. This image is a great example of using color to unify a collection of artwork. Here, the color black just very subtly ties everything together, in my opinion. And it even picks up on the color in that floor tile, which I think just goes back to that note of having one color at varying levels in your space. Totally makes it feel cohesive. And here they're using a ledge to display a cool collection of small objects. And I think the key to making this feel cohesive is that all of the small objects have a similar vibe and scale. It feels like a small collection with a story and not just a random hodgepodge of figures. One more important tip to making things feel cohesive is to remember proportion and scale. When deciding how to furnish your space with pieces from different time periods, it's important to remember how they relate to each other in terms of proportion. So if you have a sofa from one time period and a lounge chair from another, just make sure that they work well together in terms of proportion. What I mean by this is you don't want like a low, deep, loungy sofa paired with a small scale Victorian dining chair. The proportion of these two items just don't play well together. So for functionality's sake, make sure the seat heights are similar so that there's continuity in the way a piece will work in a social setting. Okay, so we've talked about the tips to creating this ideal eclectic design. Now I'm going to talk about things to avoid. One huge thing you want to avoid is buying sets of furniture. You want to break things up visually, and one easy way to do that is to avoid buying sets. So having some matching furniture is not a bad thing. Matching nightstands are a yes. Matching dining chairs, also a yes. However, you don't want your sofa, coffee table, and side chair to all match, because instead of a cohesive look, you're just gonna end up with a boring space that lacks any personality. Another thing to avoid is, in general, like a neutral palette. If your goal is to have an eclectic individual style, I think you need to add color somewhere, whether it's your artwork, your rugs, upholstery, like somewhere to make it interesting. So neutral colors can act as a great backdrop for your belongings. So if you're drawn to more subdued and muted colors, I would say establish a neutral base. This could be your walls, like painted in one nice neutral color, or larger pieces of furniture. And then you can just add subtle layers of color with artwork, rugs, and accessories. By keeping your walls and larger pieces of furniture neutral, it gives you more freedom to experiment with color and the smaller, more affordable items, instead of locking you into a big expensive overhaul if you change your mind later on down the road, which we all been there. I feel like I've touched on, in my opinion, some of the most important keys to creating a cohesive and eclectic space. Like I said, these aren't meant to be rules. They are simply guides to help you figure out how to make all of your stuff work and feel like one big happy family. So I hope this was helpful. It was helpful for me just doing the research for this video and thinking about my space. I am in the process of figuring my space out still. We've been in this home for a few months now, and I'm still trying to figure out where we're headed and where things belong, and it is just a slow art. So give yourself some grace, play around with things, and just remember that nobody has it all figured out. You can do this. Take your time and take the pressure off of yourself, and do what makes you happy. At the end of the day, that's all that matters. See y'all next time.